Some people say the best ability is availability. Well, in the case of Michigan on Saturday, the best ability is escapability.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, get out your Webster's dictionary and scroll to the section with words that start with the letter E. Find the word escape. What do you see? You see Sharon Moore, you see a winged helmet, you see the big house, you see the Michigan Wolverines, because this was the ultimate textbook dictionary definition of an escape victory in the Big Ten Conference, right? You had Michigan leading 24-3 at one point in this football game, doing some really good things defensively, doing some things pretty good offensively, certainly as well. But then Minnesota outscores you 21-3 to finish this game. Now, before I get into my takeaways, you guys know I am not somebody that mentions officials a lot in my reaction, right? And maybe much to the chagrin of some viewers and some commenters right there, I leave out officiating sometimes. And officiating as a whole across college football this season has not been very good. But I do want to address the offside call on the onside kick at the end of the game. Okay, the first replay sequence that Fox showed, okay, it showed maybe a half an arm or whatever offsides, but I thought that replay sequence was maybe a little bit further than it needed to be. Okay, let's go back to the second replay sequence. They freeze it right when boot hits ball. And that half an arm might have been on the right side for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Fans of the maroon and gold, fans of Minnesota, I can understand if you think you got screwed in this game, because you might have with that call at the end of the game. I'll say it this way as well. I think if there is no flag on that particular play, I don't think Michigan fans are yelling and screaming at the clouds of a bad no call in that particular situation. It was even on that first replay sequence where maybe it was, a handful of frames ahead, it was still a razor thin margin. And if Minnesota holds on to that football and there is no flag on that play, I think we're talking about something completely different on this reaction. I think we're talking about a Michigan loss, to be honest with you, because Minnesota, they were moving in that fourth quarter, right? They were moving in that second half. Once they got that offense going, they were playing offense with a lot of confidence. And that's where I want to start with my takeaways from this particular matchup. How about the resiliency of this Minnesota team? Not a lot was going offensively. Look, you're playing a really good defense, of course, in Michigan. That has something to do with it. But I look in that first half, the run game, and the Minnesota run game as a whole this year is not what it had been in years past. So I understand that part of it as well. Receivers early on in the first half, they weren't completely able to separate, running a lot of lateral stuff, some lateral passing concepts. I think there was something like a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. They swing it out to Darius Taylor, and the team speed on the perimeter of Michigan really showed in that particular instance. So Minnesota had a little bit of a tough time getting things going. They needed that long pass, jump ball, Hail Mary type of play, and then the great execution to get the field goal team out there. They needed that just to be able to get points on the board in the first half of this game. But once Max Brosmer really settled in, once Max Brosmer really got confident, you start to see the talent that 16 in maroon and gold has, and that's kind of a microcosm of the season a little bit. Okay, every game it seems like he gets a little bit more confident. Every game it seems like he gets a little bit better throwing the football down the field. And man, especially in that fourth quarter, when you needed to make big throws, when you needed to convert third downs, when you needed to keep on moving the sticks, he always came up with a play. Now, where I see positives for Minnesota, you could also equal that to negatives for Michigan. Now, Michigan was without Will Johnson in this particular game. Now, you were feeling pretty good about that in the first half, that Hill and Hall and others in this secondary, right? Hill and Hall at the corners, right? And everybody else in this secondary says, hey, there's some depth there. They can cover what Minnesota has. But then when you got to the second half, maybe your tune changed a little bit in terms of your feelings of the secondary going forward for the Michigan Wolverines this season. So you got to give big props to Minnesota for hanging in this football game. And they did what they needed to do on defense as well, right? The formula to really halting Michigan is very simple. You got to make Alex Orji beat you. Now, we'll talk about Alex Orji here in just a minute, but I thought Minnesota really dialed in on that. Were they playing a little bit more out of the, some guys a little bit softer and out of the box? Yeah, maybe a little bit, whereas, just cram them in there, man. You know what Michigan's going to do, and you just got to be able to stop it. So I thought Minnesota down the stretch, right, did a really, really solid job in this one to be able to hang in there. And this one is going to hurt for Minnesota. Right, now that they lost on the road to the 12th ranked team in the country, right, that was expected by a lot of people. But the way this one ended, knowing that it was within their grasp, and then you kind of look to the rest of the season, and you look at they were leading at halftime against Iowa, played a bad half. You look at that couple of missed kicks against North Carolina that cost them the football game. Like, this is a 2-3 team right now. And this is a 2-3 team, I think, that's playing a lot better than their record is. I think Minnesota is improving week after week after week. They're kind of formulating what they are right now, and I don't think that this is the Minnesota team that we've come to expect that's maybe going to ground and pound as much. I don't think that their offensive line is consistently good as maybe they need to be able to pound the football that much with Darius Taylor in the backfield. They're trying to get him involved in a lot of different ways as well. But this was a good showing in the second half, certainly for PJ Fleck and the Minnesota Golden Gophers to be able to play and go toe-to-toe with a team like Michigan there down to the very end in this particular football game. All right, let's talk about Alex Orji for a minute, because we all knew what Michigan wanted to do. And I will say this about Minnesota. Last thing on Minnesota and really their defense. They needed to contain some of these big run games. Now, did Michigan get some big chunk runs in this game? Yes. But I thought Minnesota did a better job than USC did last week at really containing those big, huge, explosive runs where Kaleo Mullins can get a lot of momentum, break a lot of tackles, and just take a licking and keep on ticking, right, sort of runs as well. So I thought Minnesota did a respectable job at that, and that's what they needed to do to get this game where it was, certainly late in the second half. All right, now let's get into Alex Orji a little bit. I want to give props to Kirk Campbell. I want to give props to Sharon Moore. I want to give props to this Michigan coaching staff for trying to be more balanced, because, and I talked about it on another program this week, like, what happens if, like, Michigan could have lined up Service Academy style, threw the ball 18 times, and they still probably could have won this football game. All right, even though that this one was very close, certainly down the stretch. But what's going to happen? Eventually, someone's going to be able to stop your run game, or at least really contain it, even more than Minnesota did today. And then it's going to become a time, or even if you're behind in that particular football game, Alex Orji is going to need to make a play. And if he's throwing the ball 7 or 8 times every single game, that's not going to fly. He's not going to have the confidence to be able to make that play later on during the season. Luckily for Michigan in this game, they were ahead. So they didn't need Alex to make the plays down the stretch. But I will say this about Alex Orji. I thought there were flashes in this game where you say, that's good. Ooh, that's good. Okay, where you kind of see where, okay, you can see how he fits certainly within this offense. Like, there were times early on in this game, I think it was their first touchdown drive, where they were mixing the run and they were mixing that short to medium passing concepts in the throw game as well. And that's exactly what Michigan needed to do. Like, Alex Orji's ability, like, he's not going to throw the ball deep down the field, right? When he stretched the ball deep down the field, it was a bad throw and it ended up in an interception. Okay, so I think we know that. It's that short to medium passing game, working off of play action. You saw his scrambling ability. He was able to take advantage with his legs in those particular opportunities as well. But in the throw game, I thought when it was working and he was able to hit those out routes, he was able to hit some stuff in the middle of the field, I thought that's when Michigan's offense was at its best. right when you were throwing to keep that balance so you could open up more opportunities within this run game for Alex Orji. So steady improvement. Steady improvement, I think, is how we can characterize this game from Alex Orji. Is there a long way to go? Abso-freaking-lutely. Right? We got a long way to go till we feel confident that Alex Orji can go out and lead a team and try to win us a football game. That's a long ways away. Very small light, certainly at the end of the tunnel right now. But what I saw in this game is slight and steady improvement from number 10 in maize and blue. Michigan, they know who they are. I think we've kind of come to the point in the season where Michigan knows we're probably not going to blow a lot of teams out. Like, you look at the remainder of the schedule. Okay, outside of the Oregons of the world and the Ohio States of the world, you still got Indiana on your schedule. You still got Illinois on your schedule. I think that they are self-aware to know they're going to be in a lot of close games. And they know what they have to do to win close games. Beginning of the season and in the early part of the season, some people, I haven't said it publicly, but I've kind of kept, because I didn't want to really throw out this comparison, but how Michigan plays reminds me a lot of how Iowa has played the last few seasons. Certainly not great offensively, certainly not great in the passing game, but they really excel with what they have on the defensive side of the ball. But they are going to drag teams down with them, and they know what they have to do to win a football game. It is not pretty. They know that they are going to play in a lot of close games all season long, and they know they have to do just enough, make just enough plays down the field to be able to win that game. They know their identity. They know that they have to run the football. They know that they need just enough from Alex Orji in the throw game. They know that they need pressure coming from their defensive line. They know that they can't allow big plays over the top in the passing game. This game was an example of that. And considering their schedule the rest of the way, I think we're going to see Michigan be very self-aware and know what they have to do to win a lot of these close games down the stretch. It would not be surprising to me if almost every single game the rest of the season is 10 points or less. Whether Michigan wins or whether Michigan loses, I think that they're going to have to buckle down and play a lot of tight games the rest of the season. But the good news for them, they acknowledge their flaws and they understand and they appreciate what they are and who they are. I want to know what you guys think of this particular matchup. The Wolverines squeak by the Golden Gophers. Do you think Minnesota can maybe, a moral victory, don't like that, but can they use this to maybe build off of this and maybe pull an upset, maybe next week, maybe a little bit later on down the road? And how concerned are you for the Michigan Wolverines? Leave all your thoughts in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.